started then. Good evening. It's Tuesday, August 13th of 2024, Stoughton City Council meeting. And I think Nicole Marie is going to do the clerk honors tonight since there's an election going on. Yeah.
I just called the roll then, right? Okay. I'm going to go alphabetical because that's what's on my list. Alder Abel.
Here.
Alder Butler.
Here.
Alder Caravello.
Here.
Alder Hirsch.
Here.
Alder Jensen.
Here.
Alder Lagaki.
Absent and excused.
Alder, I'm going to...
Here.
Majewski, thank you. Alder Payton.
Here.
Alder Reeves.
Here.
Alder Sherlucky.
Absent and excused.
Alder Schumacher.
Here.
Alder Wozniak-Scanlon.
Here.
We have quorum.
All right. Thank you very much. And we are certified of compliance with open meeting laws. Nobody has signed up for public comment. So we have communications and presentations. And bear with me tonight. We're using Google Meet tonight. I'm still trying to get used to the formatting. If you're on Zoom or Google Meet virtually and I don't see you, it's because I'm flashing back and forth between an enlarged screen when I'm sharing documents and I can't see people. So I'll try to do my best. And if I don't call on you, you can always just say, hey, I have something to say. And then other communications, as I mentioned, it is election night for the primary. So all the poll workers and clerks have been busy all day. Things seem to be going very smoothly this morning when I went out there. No issues that I'm aware of. So things are going well in Stoughton. We appreciate all the folks that volunteer for the elections. DJ, I saw him this morning bright and early.
Oh yeah, I did the morning shift over in District 4. It was great. So anybody else who is interested in doing it, do it. We're going to need you in November too, because there are going to be a lot of people coming through and a lot of interest in voting. So
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, and you got 50 minutes left. So anybody who's watching, you probably already voted because you're watching City Council. But just saying.
All right, and then any other communications from alders? President Reeves.
Just a reminder, we do have our budget meeting for CIP this Thursday evening. We are going to keep it at 7 o'clock. We'd had some discussion about moving it up earlier because Public Works had been canceled, but we have some alders who are not necessarily able to make it at 6 o'clock, so we are going to have the meeting at 7 o'clock. If you're a chair of a committee, you are requested to be there, and if you're not and would be interested, I think it's a really good way to kind of learn about what we're spending our money on and how the budget works. So if you'd like to be there, that would be great. And that's this Thursday, and we're meeting here in council chambers at 7.
Thank you. Any other communications from alders? Hearing none. Presentations. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, for tonight's historical things, I have to plug the library on this one because if you haven't been in their local section that is on the ground floor on the northeast corner of the library, there's a fantastic collection of books and historic records and that in there regarding Stoughton. But so I pulled a bunch of things that were council actions done in the month of August throughout the history here. So on August 4th, 1886, Dow and Townsend Company applied for a permit to establish the city's electrical light. In August 14th, 1901, an ordinance for Spooner and Walsh to construct an electric railway through the city on South Jefferson, Water, Main, and Page Street. So we're already looking at mass transit options, 1901. August 3rd of 1903, the council voted to pave Main Street with bricks. In August 28th, 1905, the council voted to install a telegraph at the firehouse and the waterworks, which we don't have the waterworks anymore. And then in August 21st of 1919, there was an ordinance setting the speed limits on all of the city streets to 15 miles an hour, 8 miles per hour in school zones, and anyone riding horses were required to yield to the motor vehicles. That's it.
All right, thank you. Next item is net new construction update by Director Ellinger.
Both this item and the next item, just informational only for you. Our net new construction was 3.54%, which is a record for the city of Stoughton. Looking at where we were at for the Dane County communities, we were actually number 8 ahead of some of our local counterparts. So it's nice to see that we're growing as compared to the rest of the county. The equalized value is 4.33%, so math says the mill rate will drop slightly. Obviously, we don't know the debt levy yet, but I do think that there will be a very slight increase in the mill rate at the end of the day. If anybody has any questions, I can certainly answer them.
All right, seeing no questions, we'll move on to the next item. And let me just get back to it here. All right, you went through the equalized values. So we have consent agenda. In the consent agenda, we have minutes, and then we have a temporary Class B special event license for Wine Walk. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion by Majewski, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Peyton. Would anybody like anything voted on separately from the consent agenda? If you have any questions, I think Kelly's on here. She's coordinated the Wine Walk. Anything you want to say about Wine Walk, Kelly? Guess not. All right. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. And that'll take me back to ordinance 16. So ordinance 16 of 2024 is the second reading, and this one came from the Plan Commission, and so that would be Alderperson Caravello.
Thank you. This is Ordinance 16 of 2024, approving an amendment to the Meadows at Kettle Park West General Development Plan, changing the underlying zoning of the alley lots described as blocks 1, 2, 7, and 8 of the plat of the Meadows at Kettle Park West from SR6 to TR6, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I was going to say don't all jump at once. Alderperson Caravello.
And this is, as we discussed at our last meeting, changing the zoning from single-family residential to twin home. And
All right. And then any questions on this one or comments from anybody? I can just put it up here quick as a reminder. So, and I know Connor's here from Ford Development Group. Anything you want to say, Connor, tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing in particular to re-explain this evening, but I'll be available for any questions and can also relay any questions you may have for D.R. Horton if there's any questions specific about the product. I did want to comment that assuming we're able to move forward here this evening, we have been working with city staff on a specific implementation plan, a SIP submittal that would follow in accordance with the requirements that we worked with staff and in the meetings past here. So any questions, I'll be around. Thank you.
All right. Anything from Alderperson Payton?
Just for the maybe I'm confused with Google Drive to make sure that I understand what I'm looking at. There are 2 copies of the ordinance on there. One has some red additions and the other does not. Are those just to compare what the original ordinance was, and then the red were some things we were talking about in the last meeting and in previous updates? So I just want to make sure we're voting on the...
Sure, and we'll have Director Munns Pritchard can walk us through that.
So I included 2 versions of the ordinance. One is with the previous, and then the second one was with the developer asking for a couple of things. One is the original, the other one is the amended one, and the changes are in red, so they're easier to find. And that's why I included both of them. I wasn't sure to, which direction you guys wanted to go.
And if I may, there's one more comment that we're hoping to add to the red version as well. If you would look at item K, B there on the minimum design standards, it reads, each unit shall consist of changes in materials and appropriate architectural detailing that add scale to long walls. This will include different facade elevations. The same color and design cannot be closer than 3 dwelling units from each other. That is all fine with us. We just wanted to add clarifying language that would read, the same color and design cannot be closer than 3 dwelling units from each other on the same side of the street. Given that these are alley designs, I believe that was the original intent of the language, but just to clarify on there would be helpful. So thank you for bringing that up. That prompted that one item that I'd missed. Appreciate that.
I do have a follow-up question if we're on the red, which sounds like that's the one that we kind of discussed, but it sounds like Chris wants us to decide if we go with the original or we go with that language. But as I was also looking through the presentation, and we have had, of course, a lot of conversations about basements, I was looking at the floor plans in the presentation, and I couldn't quite tell, because the original modeling did not include a basement design. Where would access to the basement go? Because we don't see that, and that's going to be on these design standards, that they would have one unless you can't have one. So I'd like to see where you plan to kind of throw them in there, if at all possible.
Yeah, for sure. And I did chat with D.R. Horton. Their goal is to put basements on every unit that they can. And as far as the specific floor plans, I'll get some examples from them or get some direction on where they intend for that to go. I'm from an architectural standpoint, I'm not exactly sure. I'm assuming it'd be within traditional, coming in from the garage entryway before you step into the living area. But I'll get the exact locations from them, and we can share floor plans showing that would be part of it, and even include that as an exhibit as part of the SIP process.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we would appreciate seeing some of that.
For sure.
Especially if this passes tonight. So,
Yep,
thanks.
absolutely.
Any other questions or comments on this one? So is the ordinance good the way it is, or are we looking to amend it, or is everything in order, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's in order. I just went ahead and added that second note on the same side of the street. So clarification on how the layout for the colors is, but I wanted to present both just in case. I believe everybody was okay with the changes that were suggested at the last meeting, but I just didn't want to assume, so.
All right, President Reeves.
Just another clarification on L. It says that all buildings shall have basements unless site conditions are unsuitable. Is that clear enough, or does there need to be any clarity? I know there was a discussion about a water table, but are there other conditions? And maybe that's all that needs to be stated, but I'm just wondering if that's ambiguous at all.
So in looking at that language, I mean, when they submit the SIP, I guess the Plan Commission is going to determine whether or not the SIP is consistent with the GDP. So if we wanted to, we could put additional clarifying information in there, such as approved by or as determined by the city planning and director, or director of planning and development. But I think as written, it gives discretion to the city and the developer, I guess, to work through on what would be unsuitable, because I guess there are just conditions we don't know about with the water table right now, or what conditions might not be suitable for a basement.
I think the language is clear. The other thing that'll happen during, this is one of the things that kind of came out of the Magnolia Springs on some of the areas that are not suitable for basements. I believe that through the engineering, we had him file something with like the Register of Deeds stating like, this is slab because of X, Y, and Z reasons, so that it went with the property, so the property owner could see why they didn't have the basement.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a question. If we're going with, say a site isn't suitable for a basement, would that then building be required to have some other kind of safer room for, say, a tornado coming in, like, extra built wall or something like that? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how to create the safety that would not equal, but would be good enough for if a tornado came through. Is that a possibility?
I know that last week I tried to look at, the last meeting, I tried to look at guidelines. There's not really anything out there. We have our minimum building code that we adopt through the state of Wisconsin, which I know the state of Wisconsin is actually higher than a lot of adjacent states for building, but I don't know that there's any parameter for that unless it's getting into the commercial level.
Okay. I was just wondering, when those building codes were updated, now that we seem to be having tornado warnings every week as opposed to, once a year. So I'm just trying to figure out, can we be ahead of the ballpark, or are we going to be chasing that at some point?
Well, and so this is going to get slightly off topic, so I apologize, but kind of what I was reading on the topic was basically we could go in as a city and adopt higher like stringencies, but the other part of it too is what I was kind of reading for the FEMA stuff is a lot of it falls under commercial level stuff. So it'd be like, I don't know how it applies necessarily to single family homes. I mean, in this case, we can require basements. And if I'm remembering, I was out on that site and there were a lot of, it looked like there were like swells. Well, the reason it looks like that is a lot of the basements have already been dug in the area. And I have a sneaking suspicion that most of them are going to have basements. I think if there's one or two that doesn't, that's why we put it in.
Okay. And also, I guess before, this new Google Meets is hard. My camera doesn't work with it. I can't put my name in there. So before I forget, I just want to make sure that it's just remembered with everybody, because there's a lot of new people, that according to the original plan for the KPW, nothing can be built on the other side of Alpine Run until there's an access point to 138. So I just want to make sure that that's kind of highlighted. So that's all I have.
Yeah, we did remind them of that during our discussions with both Ford Development Group and DR Horton. And Director Ellinger, did you have your hand up earlier, or?
I was just going to let you know somebody had raised their hand.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the ordinance? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item is R129 of 2024. That one's coming from the Finance Committee. Alderperson Schumacher.
I apologize to everyone that you're going to have to listen to me for the rest of the meeting, but sorry. It's the way it rolls today. This is R129 of 2024, a resolution for the finance committees, for the shared ride services fund balance policy. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Reeves. Alderperson Schumacher.
Dave, rescue me if my memory goes rusty on me here, which is very possible.
This was a resolution actually requested by our outside audit firm, Baker Tilly. We separated out shared ride services back in '22, I believe it was, and any interest earnings from those cash balances have been retained in shared ride services. The auditors indicated we need a resolution from the Common Council so that those interest earnings did not lapse back to the general fund.
All right. Everybody familiar with the shared ride or have any questions on this? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Let's see. Next item is R130.
All right, this is R130, 2024, a resolution to release the irrevocable letter of credit for LOCM Properties LLC. So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Alder Jensen. Alderperson Schumacher.
This is a letter of credit that's retained for the gingerbread house development. They are asking that this letter of credit be released for them as they've satisfied everything or the things that were required within their developer's agreement.
Any questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item is R131.
This is R131, 2024, a resolution to release the irrevocable letter of credit for Blue Lake Properties LLC. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Reeves.
Same concept. This is for the development or developer of the development that is the apartment complexes on Nygaard Street on the east side of 51.
Any question on that one? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Next item is R132.
This is R132, 2024, a resolution for the consolidation of senior center special revenue funds. So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Butler.
Senior center had four separate funds out there for various reasons from sources, community sources, donations, going to certain parts of their programming. This was to bring those all together and kind of simplify the way that the accounting structure is in it. And that way that when audit time comes up, they don't have to track all the separate funds.
Questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then any opposed? That motion carries. Next one is R133.
This is R133, 2024. This is a resolution for the closure of Fund 236 of the Tree Commission. So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Alderperson Jensen.
We did away with the Tree Commission as a specific standalone committee that has been morphed into the Tree Advisory Group. The funding would be moved into the general fund. Is that true, Dave?
General fund under Public
Under
Works
Public
Forestry Division.
Yep. So we had a discussion about this a little bit in the committee, and same thing with the senior center funds, do they lose sort of the granularity of each of these funds in there? They don't, it moves like, it's like indented a paragraph or something like that, and they become departments within that department is a strange word to use for a fund, but as an accounting term.
Well, that's a BSNA
Yep,
term.
Yep, but in this case, it's a department within the department, but an accounting department within
All right.
compartment. Lisa? No,
Go ahead.
it's not my meeting.
It can be. I'll turn it over to you. Say the word.
The only thing I was going to add is that Director Ellinger had chatted with me about the number of time-sensitive items, and some of them are related to the fact that the budget meeting is coming, so it just made more sense, since they seem to be pretty straightforward, to get some of these cleaned up prior to the budget. A couple of them with the letter of credit, while it didn't cost us anything, it is costing the companies money, so we really didn't see a need to, and it was, again, straightforward, so we didn't see a need to postpone that. So that's kind of and we can chat about Resolution 135, but I did agree that we should put these on time sensitive for various reasons, so I just wanted to let you know about that in case any of you are wondering why there's so many.
All right. Any questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. All right, R134.
R134 of 2024 is a resolution for a waiver to allow Stafford Rosenbaum LLP to represent the city in relation to AARM Group Stoughton Incorporated for a small business administration loan. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Reeves.
Let Rick go
Yeah.
through these specifically.
So basically, this is, I think we had a waiver agreement either last meeting or a couple meetings ago, but so my firm, there's another attorney in my firm that represents a company that sort of administers SBA loans. So this AARM group, or Popeyes, they are getting an SBA loan. So my partner is representing this SBA organization. So basically, there's some interpretation with the tax agreement that somewhat involves the city. So because of that, in order to represent the city, for this other attorney to represent sort of the SBA, we're asking for a waiver of the conflict under our rules of professional responsibility. So I would still be representing the city. I would have nothing to do with that loan group, and all the city's information would remain confidential. So the other attorney would be walled off and not have access to any city file.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, R135, you ready for this one?
I am.
All right.
We're almost through. It's R135, 2024, a resolution for a proposal for site investigative services, Stoughton MGP, which is manufacturing gas plant, sediment assessment of 501 and 515 South 4th Street. So moved.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Caravello.
This is the further sediment testing that is, it's further south, so actually out into the riverbank, or out into the river flow, for the former public works site, when there was some contaminations discovered with earlier work earlier this year. They wanted to get some more bore samples out and see if that contamination proliferated through the river sediment.
All right. Anything you want to add, Director Hebert?
Nope, you covered it well. So that the biggest thing is that we get moving on this to get the samples and get the samples tested and then analyzed so that we can chart a course forward to remediate the site if there's any need to do that.
All right. Any questions or comments on this one? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. All right, last but not least, ordinance 17 of 2024. This one we have on for first reading, and depending on how it goes, we may want to waive the rules, but I'll let Alderperson Schumacher introduce it and see how the discussion happens here.
All right, we just got to change or update the header in that one for ordinance 17. It's still got the, but anyway, not a big deal.
Oh, okay. Right there.
So ordinance 17 of 2024, the ordinance is to amend sections 64-5 through 64-7 of Stoughton Code of Ordinances related to special assessments and additionally create section 64-17. So moved.
Well, it's a first reading,
Oh, yeah.
so I think we should go through it. And then, what's that? So it's a first reading. We can either go through it or somebody. You want to waive the rules right away? Okay. So there's a motion to waive the rules by Alderperson Majewski and a second by Jensen. So what that means is instead of looking at it from a first reading, we can go ahead and approve it. There's no discussion on waiving the rules. There's a 2/3 vote required. So at this point, I would, all in favor to waive the rules, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So then you could either have a discussion or you could make the motion to approve, whatever you want to do.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Motion to approve and a second by Jensen. Okay, you want to explain what we would be approving?
What? No, you got to guess. This is to change up the way that we've been doing special assessments based on sidewalks, driveway aprons, retaining walls, all of those things. When street projects are done and some of those things need to be replaced, and we've placed at least some or all of the assessment onto the property owners. This one removes the requirement for the property owner to pay for these, except in specific circumstances that are within the ordinance here. There should be, I think there's a table that breaks down
This one?
that one, yeah. So where we are currently as compared to other communities of similar size. So this would essentially run them all to zero, except for the one special circumstance.
And just
On
for
the
clarification,
attachment
I think aprons stay at 100%.
Yep. Carriage walks.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. Just one thing with the aprons too. If there's a grade change during construction, so we're changing the profile of the road, then it would be 100% the city's cost. That's only a caveat with that one. Or if within 5 years of construction, the homeowner put a new apron in and it meets the current spec, then the city would pay for any additions or remediation of that apron.
So come again, Brett? I guess I misunderstood it. I thought aprons, as long as they're in good order and meet your specs, it is covered 100%. But if they're not, or they don't meet your specs,
Then
and
the
are
property, yeah, so if they don't meet, so let's say within 5 years, the property owner put a new apron in, and for whatever reason, they didn't get a permit, or whatever reason, it does not meet our specs, then we would take that apron out and replace it with an apron that meets our specifications. It would be 100% accessible to the property owner.
So it has to be within, but if it's older than 5 years, but it's still good condition, the property owner has to pay for it?
Yeah, and so here's the thing too, if it's in good condition, we're not gonna replace it. The only time we'd replace it if there's a grade change, and then it's 100% on the city's cost if there's a grade change. So if the city, if the apron was put in 10 years ago and it's still in good condition, we're gonna leave it alone and we're gonna go around it. So it's somewhat of a moot point, to be honest.
No, I'm just trying to clarify it, because when somebody jumped in and said it's 100%, I didn't think it was. So,
Yeah, those are the carve outs that were kind of mentioned.
yeah, no, thanks. And I just want to applaud you guys for actually getting this done. It's been a long time coming. I'm happy to see it.
And then Alderperson Abel has her hand up, and if you want us to explain this process, we can. Although, if you want to take a nap, we could go through it.
I mean, I'm good.
Okay.
I was in Public Works where we discussed all this. I was just going to add that the reason that, just for some context, the reason that it's still 100% is because we discussed that apron is more beneficial to the property owner than to the community as a whole. So that was just the additional context there.
That's a good point. Alderperson Payton.
One thing, and maybe Brett, you can talk to this about the process. With A, if the property owner is 100% responsible because of its defect, or that it's determined it does not, or as determined by the Director of Public Works, which is a little ambiguous, but I trust your judgment, but there's no standard within there with that statement. But lastly, do not meet current city specifications. So if someone were to be determined that they would be responsible for 100% of the costs, in here, I would like to know when they're explicitly told this is why they have that. And I know we can have conversations with it, we can go to public meetings and have that, and I know it's probably itemized somewhere, but in the letter of responsibility or some type of notice to the resident, is there should be some way to say, this is why it was determined that your driveway, your apron needs to be replaced, including, like, the issue here was the grade was not correct. The condition wasn't satisfactory, and then having a process related to that. So I hope you can speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So they do get a letter that is a preliminary assessment letter. So within that letter, we can add detail to the specific parcel, and we can outline why they're being assessed for the apron in those specific cases. So that would be the opportunity to give them the letter, and then through the assessment process, then there's a public hearing that they can come and attest that.
Yeah.
So, yep.
And following up to that one, I don't remember the original language of the ordinance in this, does this change any determinations under current projects?
So say that.
So we currently have construction underway in multiple parts of the city related to these special assessments. So does it change any of those specific determinations on clearly it will remove sidewalks and curb and gutter, but for any aprons that were replaced, does that change because the language changed, or is it the same and the language just acknowledges practice?
Yeah, so good question. And we talked about this at finance, that if there's no amendments to this proposed language, that the assessment policy as proposed would carry forward into 2024's projects. So the only projects that the aprons would be impacted by would be west-south, east-south, and Fifth Street, because those are total reconstructs, and there is some potential grade changes within those. So we'd have to go through all those and say, okay, that this is a grade change, that's 100% on the city's cost, whereas like Johnson Street or Gregg Trail, where there's no grade change, those aprons would stay the same. The cost of the property would stay the same.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this one? And I would note at finance, we did have one person that voted no, and the concern related to, people in the past had to pay their special assessment, and now going forward, including this year, they wouldn't. And, the simple response is you got to start somewhere. And, we chose to do it this year, even though we've discussed it ad nauseum for the past how many years?
How long, Greg?
Forever.
Yeah, so we just decided, that was really the only response we could get. We do have that 5-year thing on the driveway that we discussed. But, other than that, I think the plan was just to move forward. Alderperson Abel?
Just a point to clarify, are we gonna, by doing this, will this raise taxes in general across the board, or how is the difference gonna be paid for? That makes sense.
What it essentially means is that, using the numbers that Public Works said, we will now be issuing $300,000 in additional debt each year as part of the road projects.
And those road projects are usually, they're usually financed over a period of how many years?
Typically 10.
So there'd be 10-year debt, 300,000 spread out throughout the entire community. I don't know what the impact would be, but.
And then that 300,000 is issued every year going forward.
Right, so it's really just spread out throughout the community. Some communities are going the other way, where they try to actually have a street utility fee, and that ended up going to the Supreme Court. They were talking about it at a meeting today. So that wasn't really successful because they were trying to have like a fund.
Yeah, we don't want to go down that route. It was basically creating a transportation utility district.
No.
So, yeah, you can't do it.
No, some have had it for a few years, and it was challenged, and it didn't go too well for them. So I don't know what they're going to do. They have a mess. Others have tried to pay for this type of thing through like wheel taxes. We've always chose not to do that. My personal feeling, that's a regressive tax. I don't think that's the way to do it. We could always do less work too if we're concerned about the money. Alderperson Majewski.
You have to remember that this whole situation is nothing more than it was a policy that was driven by a council back in the 1990s, early 90s. The policy, it's not that they decided to do for whatever reason. I personally don't agree with it. I think there's a reason that we live in a community and that we have taxes spread out for property for everybody, so that we are spreading the pain to everybody, and the burden is lessened for those who are struggling and those who can ill afford to have a special assessment, which I find just to be insane. So just remember that this was a policy. This was not something that was ever written in stone.
President Reeves.
And the only other thing I might add is, and those are some of the discussions we have when we have the meetings on Thursday night and going forward. We talk about long-range planning and budget and how much we want to borrow and that sort of thing. So we do have those discussions to make sure that we're not exceeding our, what we're comfortable with in debt. So to clarify that, it's not an automatic. We'll have all those discussions about what we spend money on.
All right, any other questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Move to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Butler, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Payton, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, have a good election night, everybody.
You all just
Great night.
didn't want to listen to me anymore. I think that's